The Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada is best described as a relationally based missional family. We were established on May 17th, 1919, through an act of Parliament, and our letters patent outlined a number of purposes. First of all, we said that we would be about conducting a place or places of worship. Secondly, that we would organize and conduct schools of religious instruction. And thirdly, that we would carry on home and foreign missionary work for the spread of the gospel. Our driving motivation was a strong conviction that Jesus was returning at any moment. It was the return of Christ that created an urgency among us that we needed to be on God's mission through the empowerment of the Spirit, His witnesses in this world. And back in 1920, we recorded 27 affiliated assemblies. Today, there are over 1,200 churches in the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada across the nation. We embrace three overarching principles, those being self-governance of the local church, the affiliation of those churches with one another, and those two things creating what we refer to as a cooperative fellowship. Let me talk about self-governance just for a moment. Churches within the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada are not independent, and they're not autonomous. Those words don't appear in any of our official documentation. Rather, churches within the PAOC are self-governing. Self-governing with the inherent right to sovereignty in the conduct of their own affairs. This is critical to understanding who we are. Sovereignty is expressed in a variety of ways. For example, the selection of leadership, the election or selection of the pastor, the election or selection, if you will, of the board or pastor's council, and then the appointment or hiring of members of a pastoral or administrative staff that would serve the congregation. Churches also set their own vision as they make disciples. They are responsible for their own finances, the establishment of the budget, and the way that those dollars are stewarded and managed. Self-governing churches also own their own property and manage their own facilities and look after the risks associated with that, including the need for proper insurance coverages. Self-governing churches are also responsible for the philosophy of the ministry and the day-to-day management of staff and the internal management and ministry issues related to the work of the Lord in each local context. But self-governing churches also decide voluntarily to be in affiliation with other churches within the PAOC. You see, churches choose to belong to each other. We really do believe that we're better together, and so we voluntarily decide to cooperate. There is a healthy tension between the self-governance of the local church and then the affiliation of churches together. And we define that healthy tension as being a part of a cooperative fellowship, or as I said a moment ago, perhaps a relationally based missional family. Sovereignty on the one hand, and yet working together cooperatively by choice on the other. Local churches are in affiliation with one another. And some of the principles that define this affiliation are that the lead pastor would be one who holds credentials with the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. Churches are also committing to doctrinal alignment through agreement with our statement of essential truths and our positions and practices as outlined in the PAOC General Constitution and Bylaws, and it's specifically Articles 5 and 6. We're also committing to work together on the mission of God. Again, we believe we're better together one church in mission with multiple expressions. We celebrate together the international missions program of Mission Global, celebrating how we are touching and reaching to the ends of the earth, the least reached and most vulnerable in our world. And then through our domestic missions agency, Mission Canada, working to fill in missional gaps where churches and perhaps districts are not necessarily involved in reaching people with the gospel. Fellowship Services is another arm of ministry within the PAOC, providing a number of administrative and financial resources to help the local church. And then the Office of our General Superintendent, with a number of other national initiatives that serve and support districts as well as local churches across the country. And then, of course, our district ministries, which are caring for leaders and pastors and credential holders and involved in the revitalization of congregations, helping churches with multiplication strategies and also overseeing the training of students and leaders through our Bible colleges and our seminaries. Local churches, ministers, and credential holders who affiliate find great value in this relationship. We affiliate with the PAOC's history, its identity, and its spirituality. We come together in agreement on the PAOC's statement of essential truths and positions and practices, and we hold true to these truths in our preaching and in our teaching as we make disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ. By affiliating, we're bonding in structure and in governance through local church, district, and national constitutions. Affiliation also allows pastors and leaders who hold credentials with the district in which they are located to have a direct and accountable and privileged relationship across our international fellowship. This is set out in our general constitution and bylaws. Credentials provide credibility as they affirm the credential holder's commitment to shared doctrinal convictions, shared lifestyle standards, and a ministerial code of ethics. We choose to be accountable to one another. We choose to be connected with one another because we are a relationally based missional family, and that's what family does. So churches are in affiliation, but credential holders are in affiliation as well. First of all, credential holders are agreeing to doctrinal alignment with the General Constitution and bylaws. Again, Articles 5 and 6 are statement of essential truths and positions and practices. Credential holders are agreeing to abide by shared lifestyle agreements and our code of ethics, and also agreeing that the call of God on each life would be expressed through the framework of the PAOC. And so skills, gifts, and experience all being taken into consideration with various ministry opportunities that would be presented, the credential holders would see that fulfilled within this Pentecostal family. Credentials are something that need to be understood within a context. Many professions require certification or credentialing for those that are involved in that area of professionalism or conduct. Accountants, for example, doctors, nurses, even professional trades such as electricians or even plumbers. These folks would be credentialed or certified. The root of the word credential is the same Latin word for credibility or the word credit. And you know that the bank won't give you credit unless you're trusted. And that's what the word means, to be entrusted. Being entrusted or credentialed doesn't mean that any of us are perfect, but we become trusted in terms of doctrinal alignment and adherence to lifestyle standards. So PAOC leaders operate within a context of the PAOC, and that's where credentials make the most sense. You see, friends, PAOC credentials are best understood within the context of PAOC churches and ministries worldwide. An illustration that we've sometimes used would be that of a gifted surgeon in a legal courtroom. The surgeon's certification and credentials, if you will, while deeply valued and honored, may not be best expressed in the context of a courtroom. The credentials in a courtroom would probably be best suited to be legal trained credentials. So again, credentials within the PAOC make the most sense when people are credentialed with the PAOC. Now, the call of God on a person's life, their employability, if you will, among us, also needs to be understood within this framework of self-governing churches. So the reality is that even if someone is credentialed and trained, that's not necessarily a guarantee of employability among us. The reason for that, you see, is that self-governing churches and related ministries will make hiring decisions based on the skills, the gifts, and the experience that they are looking for in a person that they might elect or appoint or have joined their team. There's also issues related to reputation and also the capacity of that individual, as well as a number of other criteria that could be established by that local church or by that related ministry. Congregations have the right and the privilege to be self-governing. There's a few different realms that this gets expressed in. Biblically, a church is called to make disciples, and we look to the scriptures for the information that is necessary to help us do that well. As I've already mentioned, local churches are looking after their own facilities, they are managing their own finances, and they are responsible for the overall philosophy of the ministry locally, including the way they hire and manage day-to-day affairs and members of their team. So biblically, we're making disciples. Provincially or territorially, churches are employers. Affiliated assemblies call a lead pastor who must hold credentials with the PAOC, and we strongly recommend that staff pastors also hold credentials or at least sign off on a lifestyle agreement that would ensure alignment with our key principles doctrinally and in terms of shared lifestyle. But provincially and territorially, local churches are employers. And then federally, local churches are charities. And the Canada Revenue Agency, or the CRA, is pleased, I think, to provide us with special status. People can make donations toward the mission and vision of the local church because they know that we're committed to doing good in our society. And as a result of that, they can deduct their donations and receive credit for that on their income taxes. So there's different realms that churches need to be aware of when it comes to how they function and how they operate. But you see, as affiliated churches, they also enjoy the covering and resources available through their respective district ministries and our national family. So a PAOC church is self-governing with the inherent right to sovereignty in the conduct of its own affairs. And yet it is in affiliation with other congregations and churches. Self-governing, yet in affiliation. Not independent, not autonomous, but sovereign in what they do and how they do it. Friends, we often say that this is the strength of the PAOC, the self-governance of the local church. But then also, perhaps somewhat tongue-in-cheek, it has been expressed that our perceived weakness may very well be the self-governance of the local church, especially if a local church happens to be disconnected or perhaps misaligned in some way from our shared values and various things that we promote and celebrate together. And so we are a cooperative fellowship. characterized by mutual trust and respect for one another, high levels of communication with each other, and a commitment to participate and provide input. Our General Superintendent, Dave Wells, has said, "We are a cooperative fellowship in relationship with one another as marked by mutual trust, value, and respect for one another. We are church leaders who work interdependently as one team." A denomination could be described as being top-down, very prescriptive with instruction and initiative. The Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada is collaborative, with flexible structures and mechanisms that provide opportunity for conversation and potential adjustment over time. But we do these things together through high levels of communication and participation. We describe ourselves as a movement. And one of the things about movements is they have a tendency to move. Multiple forms of church government models have influenced our polity over the years. This has resulted in features from three main governance structures being expressed in various ways across the PAOC. As a relatively young organization, since 1919, our polity is a blend of Episcopal, Presbyterian, and congregational governance. These are three traditional church structures outlined in the local church, district, and national constitutions. Our shared values outline the interdependence of credentials, doctrine, and the fulfillment of mission through the local church in partnership with, again, districts and the international office. Elements of each of these three forms of governance have been embraced through the years. First, consider with me episcopal governance. We elect district superintendents. They oversee credential holders, and credential holders are accountable to superintendents for their conduct and their doctrine. And we serve churches as superintendents at the church's invitation. Presbyterian governance provides for the election of boards or committees or councils, both locally, also at the district level with district executives, and nationally through the appointment and election of the general executive of the PAOC. And again, we serve credential holders and we serve congregations together, believing that there is wisdom in many counselors and trusting together that positive and good decisions can be made collectively. But congregational governance is also very prominent among us. We believe that the highest authority, certainly in the local church, are the members of that church when they are gathered together in session at either an annual business meeting or a special business meeting. The same is true in districts. That's why we gather together for district conferences. And reports are offered, and there is accountability to the conference. It's also true nationally as we gather for general conference, where there's national and international representation with appropriate reporting and accountability. We are the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. Assemblies is our middle name. And assemblies have the inherent right to self-governance and the conduct of their own affairs. Yet we're in affiliation with one another, and we do that by choice. And we have these various themes of governance that have been promoted and embraced through the years. Multiple influences have shaped our approach to leadership and ministry as well over the past century or so. This has resulted in three main streams of leadership and expression among our affiliated congregations. Some churches can be categorized into these streams, and others embrace all elements of these three streams. The first could be described as a revivalist stream, where the leading gift of those in authority would be apostolic, with a main expression that might appear to be somewhat authoritarian, strong, clear instruction and direction, rooted in spiritual gifting. The second stream we might describe as more relational in nature, with the leading gift being that of a pastoral person, a pastoral gifting, the expression of that congregation and that leadership being far more collegial and working together for consensus with a congregation. It's a different type of leadership and a different gifting. And the third stream we might describe as being the relevant stream, where the primary gifting and focus is that of evangelism, and of course, missional purpose being absolutely paramount. And we find churches making choices and decisions rooted in what the unchurched might think about what's being said or done. Some churches are characterized, as I said, specifically by one of those three streams. Other churches embrace all or some of those expressions. But these streams have influenced us as a Pentecostal family over the years. Our collective identity as a relationally based missional family is expressed by biblical unity, as well as cultural and stylistic diversity, including a diversity of gifting among us. And these two things resulting in meaningful discipleship and missional ministry, so that we might, through the empowerment of the Spirit, be found on mission and faithful in reaching precious people for Jesus and making disciples of people for Jesus. Sometimes people ask me to try to explain to them some of the principles and features of the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, and this image of a cloud in a box is something that usually springs to mind and really helps me to explain who we are and how we operate. This image that you're looking at shows a cloud with a box drawn around it, or attempting to be drawn around it. The cloud, if you will, represents our Pentecostal family, the movement of the PAOC, the movement of the Spirit. The box would represent policies, constitutions, principles, values, constitutional articles and bylaws. Things that over the years we have established not to control the movement, but rather to serve the movement. But what happens inevitably is, as soon as that box gets drawn in order to serve and support the movement of the PAOC, we discover that there are parts of what God's doing among us that are outside the box. God's doing something new over here, off to the right. There's something happening that we've not yet provided for in terms of any kind of understanding or policy among us. You'll also notice that in the top left corner, there's parts of the box that we might wonder, well, why is that there? We've moved on from this. That may have been important at one time when the cloud was over there, but now that the cloud has moved, we might wonder, why haven't we changed that yet? Friends, this is why we gathered together for conversation, for discussion, for deliberation. This is why we celebrate that structures may need to be adjusted and changed. We're not suggesting that truth changes. We're suggesting that how we do what we do may from time to time need to be adjusted and changed. So maybe that's helpful for you as well, this cloud in a box analogy. One of the continued challenges in the church is the need for flexible structures that serve and support the work of the Lord. It's George Bullard who describes the kingdom of God and its activity as a cloud that moves and expands as the Spirit wills. Again, biblical truth never changes. However, in our endeavors to create efficient and effective paths, we must remain mindful of the need for flexible structures in order to also serve and support Spirit-led initiatives that may already be blowing and therefore growing in a new direction. I'm very thankful for the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. I'm thankful that collectively we can be a part of what God is doing in these last days. Friends, let's remember that our conviction has always been that Jesus is coming back very soon. And it's that motivation that has encouraged us to be on mission in the empowerment of the Spirit, doing the very best we can through the various functions and privileges of Spirit-filled living to reach people with the love of Jesus. Let's open our mouths. Let's talk about the good news. Let's be found faithful as Jesus is coming again. I trust these thoughts have been helpful to you. And if there's anything that we can ever do to serve and assist you in the good work that you're called to, please know that we across the international office and the various district offices across the PAOC exist to serve you, support you, care for you, and help you. God bless you.